Welcome, Andrea. It's a pleasure to
Thank
have
you.
you here today.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I feel like we've known each other for such a long time and we've never actually had a conversation. So.
That is true. That is true. We have followed each other's work. We have been connected on LinkedIn and Facebook for several years. And today we get a real opportunity to have this conversation.
Yeah, it's taken us a while, but we finally got here.
Finally, yes. Really looking forward to this conversation because I know that your story is so inspiring because I've followed your work for so long. So really keen to understand a bit about you. So why don't you tell us, what is your story?
Okay. I think it's important to note that my story probably started when I was very small. So the things that shaped me in my childhood then went on to shape the story that happened later in life. And I think that I put out a post on LinkedIn last week, which basically explained that at school I was consistently discussed as being average. I was average. My aptitude wouldn't amount to much. I was pretty much uninteresting across the board was the terms that were being used. And at home, it was the same story. And I think what that instilled into me was, as I finished school and my marks were average, was that there was a sense of me that I wanted to be something. I wanted to make something of myself, and I wanted to feel that utmost of pride in myself. And so what happened from then on forward was that I had this continuous belief that I needed to strive, that I needed to achieve, that I needed to be somebody that was much better than the person that I was. And I walked away from school and the jobs kept coming. They were never good enough. I was never good enough. The results were never good enough. The clients were never good enough. And so it was onwards and upwards and on to the next thing. And I moved up the ladder quite quickly because of the striving. And I moved into corporate at a very young age. So I started my corporate career at GVA Grimley when I was just 20, and moved into business development very quickly. And the constant striving, the constant I need to do better, the constant I want to be something special, but obviously not being able to identify what that something special was. And my career culminated with Ernst Young, where I spent quite a long time. And I was a business development manager for UK and Europe. And that was what I'd strive to be. I had a job where I was in lots of different countries. I was managing large groups of people. I had really large accounts. And to the outside world, I had pretty much everything. I'd got the car, the handbag, the holidays. I even met the man of my dreams and was planning to get married. It was going really, really well, to be fair. And I can remember looking back on that time in my life thinking, this is it. This is what I worked towards, and this is what I'd always wanted. I went on holiday with Ian the year before we were due to get married, and we spent a week in Rhodes, and we had a wonderful week away. And it was, I think I can remember Ian being incredibly exasperated with me before we went, because I was flying down the M1 at, I think it was 100 miles an hour, because I was late for the flight. I'd had a team briefing in Leeds, and I'd had to coach them on some pitches they had before I was away. So my life and his life and our life together was never a priority. Work was always a priority. And I think I can remember making the flight by the skin of my teeth. I came back from the holiday, and sadly I was incredibly unwell. I didn't really know at that time what was wrong or what impact it was going to have on my life. And I drove to Leeds. I'd got a meeting in Leeds. I was very poorly on the way there. I collapsed in the office. And I can remember getting home, driving home with the window open all the way home, trying to stay conscious. And when I got home, I was incredibly poorly, and I didn't then ever go back to work. That was the last day that I worked, and that year was I think it was 2002, going into 2003, and I was off work for a large period of time. Luckily, with the job I had private healthcare, so they sent me to see various doctors to find out what had happened. And the doctors told me, the neurologists told me that I'd been diagnosed with a condition called ME, which many people will recognise. But back at that time in 2003, it was seen as yuppie flu, and it was seen as not a proper illness as such. It was seen as something that people didn't understand and they didn't really have very much information about. So I was told by the neurologist that I wouldn't be going back to work and I would never go back to work. And I actually thought that I was going to prove him wrong. And that was the very first thing that I thought after he gave me my diagnosis. And that was just how I was at that time. It was the continuous striving, the continuous to be something different. And I thought this doctor must be wrong. So I then set about for the next 12 months to prove that I could go back to work and that I was going to beat this illness and I was going to be better. I got married in 2004, which was amazing. I was incredibly poorly, and we had to get married in stages. So the day had to be split up into various little sort of time slots so that I was able to complete the day. We did go on honeymoon later that year, but I continued to get worse, sadly. My body was giving out on me. The fatigue was incredibly hard to deal with. And the more I strived to get back to work, sadly, the worse the illness became and the poorlier I became. So by this point, we're going into 2005, and sadly, as we went into 2005, Ian came home from work one day and found me unconscious. The constant striving to beat the ME and to beat the illness had taken its toll. And I was unconscious. I was taken into hospital, and sadly, I had a stroke while I was in the hospital. So I'm never going to know what the real reason was behind the ME and the stroke. I don't think I'm ever going to fully know, but I don't think that my behaviours, my thought processes helped the situation. And I'm pretty certain that the life that I learned, the constant striving, the constant not being good enough, the constant trying to be better, had a dramatic effect on both. I spent 6 months in hospital. I was in hospital for a very long time. I wasn't able to do anything for myself, so I couldn't feed myself, I couldn't toilet myself, I couldn't wash myself, and it was a very difficult time. I can remember wondering if I would ever get my life back. I can remember wondering if it was better to no longer be there, because the outlook was completely bleak. And I was told that I probably wouldn't walk again, because I'd lost the use of my left hand side and the muscles in the outside of my left leg had died. And there was a lot of cognitive deficit. And so they tried really, really hard in hospital to try and get me back on my feet. Sadly, it wasn't happening. So after 6 months, they sent me to a rehab facility. And it does sound incredibly bleak and it does sound incredibly sad. But I think it's important to note that there were lots of positives, and there were lots of happy times, and there were lots of, stories that I remember with fondness. The people that I met in hospital, and the people that I met on my journey to recovery, there's many that play a really, really, sort of a large part in making me smile. So I can remember with fondness a gentleman from a nursing home who'd got severe dementia, and he was in for dehydration and a number of other things, but he had a tendency to wander, and he had a tendency to leave his visitors and his family. And for some reason, he decided that I was going to be his new best friend. So even though I couldn't move and I couldn't do anything, the one thing that I did have on my table in my hospital in room was lots of sweets. So I had chocolate, biscuits, and various things that my family would bring me to try and cheer me up. So obviously, it was the place to be. And if his family wanted to visit him, they had to sit with me, because he didn't like he didn't like leaving me. And I was surrounded by the elderly because I was on a stroke ward, and the majority of them were over 80. And I was in with the ladies, and there was 4 elderly ladies that were opposite me. One of them took a shine to my dad, so every time my dad came to visit, she'd come and sit by the bed and try and encourage my dad to partake in conversation and sharing a cup of tea. And then we had another lady that used to try to encourage my dad to put bets on for her because she couldn't get to bet on her favourite horses. There were lots of fun times, and the staff were amazing, and I ended up with my own nurses. And I ended up with people that used to wash me and used to feed me and used to take care of me on a regular basis. So they did become friends, and they're still friends today. And the time came to leave, and it sounds really ridiculous to say that I really didn't want to leave, because I'd been there such a long time and I'd made such a lot of friends that the future was incredibly daunting away from there, and came away from the people that were taking care of me. But I moved into rehab for a little while. I had my home room, and it was out in the country, and it was absolutely stunning. And again, I met lots of characters. I was in with the elderly again, and they used to leave my room door open just so they could check on me when they were passing. But what used to happen is I used to get a lot of old ladies with Zimmer frames, so they used to be doing their exercises up and down the ward, and they just used to stop by for a chat. So very often I'd have one of them in the doorway, sort of chatting and talking about things. But eventually the time did come to go home, and that was when I remember it getting incredibly tough, because that was when it was down to me. When I was in hospital, I had a number of people encouraging me. I had physios, I had mental health, I had mental health support, I had occupational health therapists. But when you're at home, they come to visit me once or twice a week, but then it was down to me. And we had a hospital bed in our living room at home. We had to move all of the furniture out, and the hospital bed was there for around, I think it was there about 6 or 7 years. It was there a long time. So it took me a long time to learn to walk. And I think that's been the hardest part of my story, and the hardest part of my life, was that I'm not convinced I knew it would ever happen. I'm still walking with help now, and my goal at the end of this year is to be walking without aid. But it took a number of years, and I do get told quite often that you're an inspiration, and I can't believe where you've come from till now. I don't like the word. I think it's bandied about a little bit too much. I think it's used far too many times. And my view is that you've got 2 choices. You either sink or you swim. So I had a choice of staying in the bed, of living a life that I was going to be cared for the rest of my life, or I fought back. And I didn't know when I decided to fight back what was going to happen. I had employed my own carers, and they were round the clock, so I used to have carers with me all the time. And bit by bit, year after year, I started to improve a little. And I can remember the first day that I took my first step, and I can remember everybody being around me, and I can remember them all cheering, and it still makes me feel up even now. It was a massive step, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. And I think that was the first sign that I can do this. I can make this happen. I hadn't quite managed to start to learn to walk properly when I made the decision that I was going to go back to university. And I can remember my husband's response was, have you lost your mind, or words along those effects that I'm not going to put in the swear words, but there was quite a few of them related in the sentence. And my reply was, I need to know if my brain still works. And that was the reason why I needed to go back. University accommodated me amazingly, because I was still in a wheelchair. I had my own note taker, and they allowed me, a lady, to push me between lectures and to take notes for me, because I still wasn't able to use my left arm, so I couldn't note take for myself. So she took all of my notes for me. She took me to all of the lectures, and I did all of my work in my bed with my laptop propped up. I did a HND to start off with, and I graduated with a HND in applied computing. And then they asked me if I wanted to stay on for an extra couple of years to actually do a degree, and I stayed on for the extra 2, and I graduated with a BSc in computing science on my 40th birthday. And that was when I had no idea what life was going to bring. And so, because I had my newfound skills, because I knew I wouldn't be going back to my job anytime soon, the previous job I had in corporate, I was then helping a lot of my friends in their businesses. And so SEO Angel was born in 2014, the year after I graduated. And the business is 7 years old this year. And I'm incredibly proud of it. It started in my bed. So I used to work the hours that I could sit upright, and I would sleep in between, unbeknownst to my clients. In the early days, I didn't tell anybody about my past, because I decided that they wouldn't want to work with somebody who got a damaged brain. And so I kept it to myself for quite a long time. So I only actually came out to the world probably, and you were probably there around that time when I told the world, and that was probably about 4 years ago. And I can remember the first time that I filmed the video to tell my story, and I released it out onto LinkedIn, and I went and hid in the cupboard, because I was convinced that I was going to be trolled. I was convinced that there was going to be lots of nasty comments. I was convinced that all my clients would get up and walk away and not want to work with me. But what actually happened was the complete polar opposite. I had thousands and thousands of views, thousands and thousands of comments, and the consensus of opinion was that if you can come through that, you can help me in my business. And so it was probably the bravest thing I've ever done, was to tell the whole world. And it's, I think what that gave me was the ability to, I don't have to hide anymore. I'm out there in the world as me. My story's out there. I'm out there, and I don't need to be anything else other than who I am. And I think it was incredibly liberating. It was probably one of the best things that I ever did, because there's no need to hide anymore. I can turn up every day as me, and I attract the people that relate to me, that are on the same wavelength as me, and that, more than, they want me to help them and they want to work with me. And so it's been 18 years to get to this point. And when I wrote it down before I came on the call, I just couldn't quite believe it, that it had been 18 years. And it's been such a long road. But I'm just absolutely mega proud that I'm here, and that I got through it, really. Thank you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I know you said that the word inspiring has been used quite a lot, but that's the feeling I have. This is not the first time I have listened to your story. After all these years, I still remember the post that you mentioned, wherein you came out to the world and shared about what had happened to you, what you have been through. I still remember that post and your story. And of course, I remember you and your work. And it has always inspired me so much. So thank you so much for your bravery. Thank you so much.
Thank you. At least I'm proud that I got through without crying this time. That's probably one of the first times that I've managed it. And I think that's telling me that I've managed to put a lot of it to bed now. I've let it go. It's happened. It was a very, very difficult time, but it's gone now, and it's about the future now, and it's about what are my goals and what are my plans for the future. And I said to you right at the very beginning that I've only ever shared because I want to help others. And there's a large number of women that I've worked with and I've come across in my community that just don't believe you know, the abilities that they have. They don't believe in their own strength. They don't believe in what they're able to achieve. And the only reason why I ever share is because I just want people to understand that we just don't know how strong we are until we're our backs up against the wall. I had no idea the strength that I had until I needed to use it. And I didn't manage to get a degree when I was in teenage years because I didn't believe I could achieve it. But the fact that I achieved it at the worst possible time in my life is testament to me that it was there all along. And sometimes we just have to believe, and we have to have that self-belief in ourselves. If you'd have said to me 10, 15 years ago that the business would be where it is today, I would never have believed you. So I just want everybody to believe that you can dare to dream. It's that your dreams are possible. When I started the business, I wasn't earning very much money at all. I think my very first year I earned zero because I was too busy helping people, because I just wanted to see if I could you know, sustain a business, that if I had the skills and what that business looked like. The first year was, I think I earned £5,000, and year on year my income has doubled and tripled to the point where I'm expecting it to be six figures by the end of this year or next year. And that came from daring to dream and my total and utter inner strength, and for, you know, totally believing in myself and, you know, that I could achieve it. I think that we as business owners, and many female business owners that I know, and I'm talking about them from the experience that I've had, is that they don't believe. They look at their competition, they look at the people around them, they think that somebody's always doing something better or something more important than them, and they feel as though I can't possibly do that, or I couldn't possibly be like them. My view is that I don't have competition because I'm me. I'm completely unique. I've got a completely unique skill set. I've got a completely unique experience. And so I don't believe that, I don't look sideways to see what other people are doing. I do my SEO consultancy my way. I've got a very unique skill set, like I've said, which is the business development that I did for a very long time. And I've also got my tech qualifications and experience, which I bring together into really unique products. And so when people say, well, X, you know, so-and-so costs X, and I've met this person and they charge this, their products are completely different to mine. They are nothing like what I offer. And therefore there can't be any comparison of price, and there can't be any comparison of outcome. And I think it's quite easy for us to get into that headspace where we're comparing ourselves to our competition. And I think if I'd have done that all through the last 10 or 12 years, I don't think I'd have gotten to where I was. And it was definitely the strength and the self-belief that have helped me to get where I am today. I don't think it's easy, but I think I hope by sharing it will help people realize that they can achieve their wildest dreams, and they can achieve what they believe is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's why you say we can achieve our dreams even when life has other ideas.
Life had a few other ideas for me. I think if you asked me before I met Ian at 28. When I met Ian, what did my life look like? Well, I was very, very career focused. I saw myself at Ernst Young being a director, being in charge of a department, and the people and the women that I worked with have achieved that. And there has been a little bit over the years, why wasn't that the plan for me? That was what I wanted for me, to be a woman in a senior role, rising through the ranks of a company that was incredibly male dominated. Ernst Young are, their accountancy. I worked in corporate finance. It was incredibly male dominated. There weren't any other females on the team. There were women who worked next to me, but they weren't in the same area. And I saw myself rising through the ranks to partner. I saw myself getting married, having children, but always coming back to my career. Life didn't quite pan out like that, and I do wonder why there were a lot of people that worked as hard as I did. There was a lot of people that did 80-hour weeks. There's a lot of people that didn't take care of their health, and there was a bit of why me at the beginning. Why did it happen to me, but it didn't happen to everybody else that I worked with? But again, like I've just said, we're all different. We're all completely different human beings. I think I'd punished my body for far too long, and I think it gave up on me. And you know, we discussed before we came on air. A few of the things that happened was that I completely lost all of my confidence. I lost my identity. I grieved for a very long time for a life that I'd always thought that I would have. I wasn't able to have the children that I planned on having. And I'd only ever known working for other people. And setting up your own business is an incredibly scary thing to do. And I did a post, I think it was only this week, saying that because I'm celebrating the 7th birthday of the business this month, and I can remember feeling incredibly sick when I published my first Facebook page for the business, thinking, oh my God, I've got to do this all on my own. And the responsibility and the weight on your shoulders of actually helping and guiding people and getting results for them felt enormous. And it's gotten easier over the years, but I now know that I don't need a group of people around me to achieve results for my clients. I'm more than capable of doing that on my own. But it took me a long time to figure out what my dreams were going to be after I couldn't achieve the dreams that I had. And so I needed some new dreams. I needed new goals, and I needed new objectives. And so my new dreams were to walk unaided. I haven't quite managed that yet, but I think I'm only a whisker away from it. A lot of people have said to me, why do you want to walk unaided? And the answer is really simple. I need to dance again. And that is my goal.
That is so beautiful. So beautiful.
I'm going to be dancing with my friends again on a dance floor in the next few years. If I fall over, I fall over, but I'm determined that I'm going to do it. So yeah, it's probably taken me 15 years to get to this point. And a lot of people have said, how come you kept going and you didn't give up? I think for a large number of years, I did it for Ian, because like I said to you, we only got married the year before I had the stroke. We didn't have any time together. Ian has only known me really as a poorly person, and he's been my carer all these years. And we've got our 20th anniversary since we met on the 22nd of September this year. So it's quite an important anniversary in the next few weeks. And he stayed with me and he's taken care of me. But yeah, I didn't give up for him, because he'd invested so much love and time that I had to do it for him until I could do it for myself. And that is the honest answer. I could sit here and tell you all that I did it for me, that I believed in myself so much, that I had so much self-belief that I did it for me. I didn't, not for a large number of years. It took me a long time to get my self-belief back. It took me a long time to realise that I was worthy again, and that I could achieve. But yes, my dream was to have a successful business. The business is doing amazingly. I'm incredibly proud of it. So that is one of the dreams that I've achieved. Like I said, my other dream was to walk unaided. I'm down to one stick, and I'm doing incredibly well. So to me, I'm nearly there with that one. The dancing is going to be the next one. And then the dream after that is to employ people in my own agency, to make a difference to them, to make a difference to people, and help them to keep a roof over their heads, and to help them, achieve what they want in life, and to pass on everything that I've learned. And then one of my next goals is to mentor women and young girls that are coming through the education system, to help them realise that they can be anything that they want to be. if I can master tech at 40 years of age, then so can they. And so I am in talks with a charity that works with young women that don't have role models, and so I'm hoping to be working with them in the near future. So yes, you can achieve your dreams. I think sometimes your dreams disappear and you think that, well, they're gone, what am I going to do? Because that was my main focus, through growing up and through my teenage years. You just have to make new ones.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Every word that you have said resonated so much, because while the reasons were different, I think there are so many parallels in our stories. You went through a stroke, I went through cancer, but we both had to rebuild our lives back up again.
Totally, yeah.
And I love what you said, that I could sit here and say that I did it for myself. I had that self-belief and strength, but actually you did it for the person you loved and for the people who loved you.
Totally. I think that your support network is incredibly important when you're getting through an illness like we've had. Yeah. There's days when you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
There's many days, and if Ian was here and he was talking to you, he'd tell you there was many days when I threw my toys out the pram and said, I'm not doing it. I can remember him stood by the side of the bed saying to me, we are doing your exercises today. You are going to put your legs over the side and we are going to do what the physios told us to do. And I'd be like, no. And I'd fold my arms and I'd be like, I'm not doing it. But he just had a way of encouraging me and nurturing me to do what I needed to do. And then there was days when I was determined I was going to do it. I think it's a roller coaster. I think anybody that tells you that they're on it and they're inspirational 7 days of the week, 24 hours a day is lying through their teeth. And yeah, I'm proud that I did keep fighting. And I think that's an important message to say, is that you're allowed to give up. You're allowed to throw the towel in. You're allowed to say you're not going to do it, but then you get back up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, that's so beautiful. It gave me goosebumps. I've got to meet Ian now.
he's floating around in the background. It's a wonder you haven't seen him. So yeah, he's I think he's 1 in a million. A lot of people have said to me that I was very lucky, and he would say that he's very lucky as well. Which is, I think we're a great partnership. We didn't manage to have children, so we've got 3 fur children. So you could probably see in the background I've got a cat tree and I've got lots of little cat houses to the side. So they're incredibly spoilt, our fur children. We actually treat them like children. But he's trying to stop me from having more fur children because he's like, I think you have sufficient. You don't need to fill the house with them. So yeah. I've got 3, so he's trying to stop me at 3, but who knows, that a couple more might creep in when he's not looking.
Well, I'm sure there's enough place in your heart to accommodate a couple more.
I wouldn't be surprised if I don't end up with a cat rescue in the garden at some point. I'll be at my happiest out there taking care of cats that nobody wants.
Yeah. That's such an important point you made about the support network while going through personal challenge or even in business. Tapping into our network is so important.
I think that like I said, when I put that video out, I had a ready-made network overnight of people that wanted to support me. And I think that the reason that they wanted to support me, and they've become firm friends, many of them, is because I was honest and authentic and I show up as me. And I do show up on the bad days, and I do show up on the difficult days, and I do share the losses as well as the wins, because I think it's a true representation of life. It's not all going to go your way. There's going to be some times when launches fail, when products fail, when you have programs that you don't get anybody onto. that is just the nature of business. We're not going to get it right every time, and I think that's where we learn, and that's where that helps us for the future. So I do share everything. I know there's a large group of people that are like, LinkedIn is for business. LinkedIn should be completely corporate. We shouldn't be sharing our personal stories. We shouldn't be sharing our personal posts. For me, as a service provider, people are going to be working one-to-one with me. Therefore, there's the know, like, and trust, and they need to connect with me. I'm very heart-centered. I'm very spiritual. I am very open, and I'm incredibly caring. And a lot of my clients become friends. But I do get tough when I need to, because the whole point of what we do is that I deliver results. And if I don't think they're on the right path, or something's not quite right, or we're not putting the right amount of effort in, then I don't get cross, but I get a little bit stern, because for me, I'm very, very results focused. If I don't get the results from my clients when I'm working with them, then I do take it to heart, because it's like a personal blow, because I've committed to a process that's going to deliver. And if it's not going to deliver for whatever reason, whether it's, they've not got the right ideal client, they've not got the right research there, they're not focusing on the right group of people or the right product, then I will tell them. And I am incredibly firm, because it's about their livelihood, it's about their business, it's about them making money. So I think there's a fine balance, is that they need to see my soft side, but they also need to see my tough side as well. And I'm not afraid for that tough side to come out, because it's what's got me where I am, really, and it's what's got me here today. And I've got a number of clients that will tell you that when we go through the early stages and the early phases, they find it really tough. And some of them have even written testimonials to say that they just didn't think they could go through the process, and they found it too hard. But then they all say at the end, I'm so glad I listened to her, because we're doing amazingly well. But I say to all of them, nothing worthwhile is easy. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, and everybody would be making lots of money from it. And so, yeah, I think I have to be extra firm in the beginning, to sort of get them on the right path, and then I can let them go, really.
Yes, that makes so much sense. Yeah, tough love, bit of tough love.
I think we all need it. I definitely needed it. I don't know whether you needed it on your journey. I think there was plenty of times when I wanted to give in. I needed some tough love. You don't want to hear it, and if you're anything like me, I'd be like turning my head away. I'm not listening. And then the next day you've got to, yeah, well, okay, you were right, and yeah, I've actually got to do as I'm told. So yeah, I said to you when I first came on, there's lots and lots of people that I know in your group that have been part of my network for a long time, and many of them do know my story. But what my network does say is that there's so many things that come out that they just didn't know. There's, every time I tell the story, they say there's something new that I tell them that I didn't before. And I think that's the nature of storytelling, isn't it? I'm not in a position to remember. I couldn't write a script or write a presentation and try and remember it word for word, because sadly my brain doesn't allow me to anymore. And so the way that I remember my story, and the way that I remember the points that I want to get across, and the elements that I want to leave the audience with, is by stories. And I have my titles of my stories throughout my journey that help me to remember what I want to get across. And that's why what you do and what you do with your group is so important, because my journey is based on a collection of stories, like a short storybook, and there's some sad ones, but there's also lots of happy ones as well.
Yeah, I love how you say it. It's a collection of short stories. There's some sad ones, but lots of happy ones.
And I think that we can focus on the sad ones. I choose to focus on the happy ones. So when I look back, I met Ian, I got married, I got better, I got a degree, I started a business, the business is thriving. So it's what's the next happy chapter going to be? I'm figuring that out at the moment. So because once I've hit my walking goal, what's my next one? It could be my dancing goal, then what's my next one? So it's there's always got to be something, and I think your dreams should make you smile. So every time I talk about dancing, I always beam from ear to ear, because we all have happy memories of dancing with our friends and our family, and it's something that, you know, that we do. Obviously there's a large proportion of people around me that I've met over the years that are disabled, and they might not get the opportunity like I did. And I've met a lot and lots of people when I've spoken at events that have come up to me that have got ME, I've been diagnosed with ME. I spoke at the Woman Who Awards and nominate the finalist nominations before we went into lockdown, the March as we went into lockdown, and I had a gentleman come up to me who worked in the FSB, and he had tears in his eyes, and he said, I can't tell you how sorry I am. And I said, you don't need to be sorry for me. And he said, no, I'm so sorry that my partner's got ME, and I've been forcing her to pick herself up and to fight and to do things. He said, I've been pushing her really hard because I thought that she needed to get through it, to push through it, to build her stamina. He said, and I've listened to your story, and he said, I could be making her poorly, and I didn't know that I could make her poorly, and I didn't know that I could make her worse. And he was so sad that he didn't realise that it could get worse like my story did. I said to him that it's not every story is typical. Just because it happened to me doesn't mean it's going to happen to her. But what he needs to do is to find the balance with her, and to find out what she can do and what she can't do, and not push too hard. And I think that's the key, is from my story, is just don't push too hard, which is what I did. And I've had a number of people that have told me that people that they know have had strokes, but they didn't have the mental strength to believe that they could get through it. I can't say categorically that they could get through it, because each one of us are different. I know that I was told I couldn't, and I did. And I believe that is down to complete bloody mindedness, as my mom would say, because apparently I've had it in me from a very young age. If somebody told me to do something, I'd do the complete polar opposite. So I think that that's instilled in me. But I think sometimes the power of our minds are a very, very wonderful thing, aren't they?
Yes, I agree. The power of mind is incredible.
I think it's been proven in many areas of life, hasn't it? Is that, people that aren't expected to survive, people that aren't expected to do things, achieve things, they do through sheer strength and determination. And I'm not saying for 1 minute that I think it can happen in every situation and scenario, but I think that believing in ourselves and the power of our thought and the power of our mind is incredibly important.
Yeah. And it's not just about putting our minds to a certain thing. Well, we have got to do the work. We have got to take that journey. Nobody's saying, I know you aren't saying that you can get away without doing it, but believing in that story, in that empowered story, makes a huge difference.
I think, we don't get something for nothing. I think I know that I see every day there's a lot of people that sell quick fixes in business.
Yeah,
there aren't any. Let's be brutally honest about it. The only thing that can help you be successful in your business is hard work and determination and consistency. And that is, there are things that we have gaps in our knowledge that we need people to help us with. So there are several gaps in my knowledge where I have people on the team that help me, and it's all about where your business is at any given time and what your business needs. I always say to everybody that works with me, is there a business need at this time for the service that I offer? And I have to make sure that they're in the right place at the right level. And if not, I'm more than happy to guide them in the direction that they need to be in. I won't take their money because they feel as though they need it. I will only take them on if I feel as though they're in the right place. And I think that's incredibly important. It's what can you do yourself, and what do you need other people for?
Yes, we've got to work our strengths, and whatever gaps are there, we can have other people fill them in.
Totally. I think that, for example, with me in accountancy, I just hate it with a passion. I don't really know. I just really don't want to know what my numbers are doing. I need to know how much I'm earning. But that's about it, really. When it comes to tax and all the rest of it, I just hand it over to somebody and let him do all of his work. And then he'll just give me some figures at the end. He can teach me. Am I the slightest bit interested? Not really. So I'd just rather he did it and gave it back to me when it's in there, when it's all ship shape, and I know what I've got to pay to, to the Inland Revenue. So yeah, there's I think there's areas of knowledge, but there's also interest. If you've got no interest in it and you don't really want to learn it, then it's better to give it to somebody else, isn't it?
I agree. Yeah, for me, accounting is one of those things. I can do numbers.
Yeah.
I am a numbers person. I would love to know my numbers, but I don't want to do them for my business. So someone else does them. Facebook ads is another thing. I enjoy understanding the concepts, but not so much that I would want to learn it as a skill and be on top of it, because it changes so frequently. Someone else does it for me. I do my thing, what I enjoy, what I'm good at.
I think that's it, isn't it? I do what I'm good at. And I think it's knowing your strengths and playing to them, isn't it?
Yeah. So Andrea, tell us, how can people experience this goodness with you? How can they work with you?
I'm an SEO consultant, so I'm not an agency that has lots and lots of people that works with them. I have a team of people that work with me. So I have web designers, web developers, SEO copywriters. I have a team of people that work along with me. I offer 3 main products, which are all programs, and they're aimed at businesses at various stages throughout their journey. So I offer a group training program where I have a 1-to-1 7-step program that I do, where I work 1-to-1 with clients, and I teach that 7-step process to a group of clients. So it's usually businesses that are just starting out. It's businesses that don't really know which direction to go. And the premise of the group program is to help them to understand that SEO isn't about keywords. It's about implementing strong visibility strategy into your business right from the outset, that's going to ensure that you have those high consistent converting leads right from the beginning, rather than implementing it further down the road. So that's a group training program. I don't do any more than 7 in a group, and it's a mixture of live videos and training, and then I do live Q&A later in the week, and that's over a 7-week period. The middle program is for businesses that are probably 3 years plus, that want to learn, that want to be able to implement themselves. So I do a 1-to-1 mentoring program where I teach the important steps to. We always start off with business strategy, business development. We then move on to their visibility strategy, and we move on to their SEO. So they all fit the same brief, but we have a group training, we have a 1-to-1 mentoring, which is over 5 weeks. And then I have my signature program, which is where I'm most passionate, which is the 1-to-1 where I work and I actually do all of the work for them. So that's I call it my 1-to-1, the ultimate SEO consultancy program. And that's where I come to life, and that's where I'm most passionate. But I'm also aware that not every business is at that point, where they're usually the businesses that come to me that want me to do the work are usually quite established. The business has been around for a long time, but they've sort of reached a plateau and they want that next level of growth. And they know about SEO, they understand about SEO, but they just have no idea on how to implement it into their business. And I will let you into a little bit of a secret. Most clients that come to me, it's never an SEO issue. It's always a business issue. And everybody comes to me, my website doesn't get any leads and I just don't make any money through it. It's always a business problem. And so I'm just in a unique position, because I worked in business development for quite a long time, that I can help them with their strategy. I can help them with their goals and their objectives and what they want to achieve. And then we can implement that into their visibility strategy. We then look at their businesses overall before. I think we don't actually look at their website until step 6 of 7. So it's very, very late in the process, because there's so much more that we need to do before. So yeah, there's the group training, there's the 1-to-1 mentoring, and the 1-to-1 where I actually do all the work for them. But I also sell sort of individual products, like I do an SEO audit of their website to tell them what their issues are. I do the actual keyword research phase. I actually do that as a standalone product as well. And I'm very excited that my new website is going to be launched next week. So I've got completely new branding, completely new overhaul. It's been finished as we speak, and should be launched on Monday of next week. And so all the programs and all of the standalone products will be live then. But until then, I've been sending out lots of Google Docs that tell my clients all about the programs. Well, because I think it's important to note that as much as I want the website live there for the visibility and for the traffic, it had to be right. And I think birthing a new website is a bit like birthing a baby. It's a lot of hard work. It's taken me nearly 9 months. It's been a labor of love, and it needed to be spot on. So I think that sometimes we can think that we have to rush it. But I did a post on it today. It's got the process it should be when you're looking at a new website is SEO, then it should be copy, then it's design, then it's build, and then it's consistent, adding consistent content following on from that. And that's the process that if anybody listening is looking to make sure that they're going to get those consistent leads from their website, that's the order that they need to do everything, really.
Yeah. I saw that post and I went, that's really interesting, and so clearly laid out the process. I
think it's had a bad rep, SEO, over a number of years. I put out a lot of posts saying I'm determined to make it sexy again. And what I mean by that is that we've all had those emails into our spam telling us that our websites are rubbish, that they've got so many things wrong with them, and that you need to do this, this and this. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. And I think it's just nasty. And I think that for me, SEO is about making you visible to your ideal client who's already out there searching for you. It's as simple as that. The reason that SEO is profitable is because your ideal client's already made the decision to buy. They're already taken to a search form to look for somebody's service, or they're looking for a product. And that's why they say social media is sexy, but SEO pays the bills. It's because your audience are already looking for you. So I explain that my job is to make sure they're found above their search competition. And I did say earlier that we don't have competition, but sadly we do have search competition. So if somebody's out there looking for your services, there are going to be people in a search that come above and below you. And I think that when we're working on the 3 programs that I focus on, we look at your business as a whole. We don't look at just your website. We look at your social media, we look at your PR, we look at the 60 seconds when you're standing up in networking, because we're talking about a complete 360 degrees of visibility. And so we do work in all areas to make sure that the strategy is rolled out throughout the business. And it is basically about making sure that your ideal client finds you above your search competition. And that's what my role is. And it's usually that businesses are not focused, they're not clear. And I always say that it's focusing on one group of people with one solution, with one promise or quantifiable outcome. And that's what we need to look at when we're looking at our visibility strategy. And that's usually where most people that come to me are falling down.
Yeah. One group of people with one solution, one strategy. Yeah, love that.
I think we can be drawn into the fact that many of us come from a corporate background. And so we're instilled with corporate values and corporate way of doing things. When you're a very small business in a very big pond, you've got to stand out, and and you've got to stand out to be found. And if you're going to be found, then we've got to be very, very clear on what we do, how we help, and what is that quantifiable outcome at the other end.
Yes. There's so much wisdom there. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
Andrea, before we let you go, what is one big message you want to share with our audience today?
Never give up, and never give up on your dreams.
Beautiful. What a beautiful message to finish this conversation on. Andrea, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a total pleasure. Thank you for having me.